What happens when basketball's most enigmatic star faces his biggest test yet? March 3, 2025, Sacramento's Golden One Center. Kyrie Irving drives hard to the rim, his signature handles flowing like water through traffic. Then in a split second, everything changes. The pop, the immediate grimace, the way he still somehow finds the strength to sink both free throws before being helped off the court. That moment didn't just end Kyrie's season, it marked the beginning of a story that could define the next chapter of Dallas basketball. Here's what most people missed about that injury. Irving wasn't just having another solid year when his ACL gave out. He was quietly putting together one of the most efficient campaigns of his career, averaging nearly 25 points on elite shooting splits. The Mavericks had already shaken up their entire foundation by trading away their franchise cornerstone for Anthony Davis, and suddenly their other superstar was gone too. But sometimes the most devastating setbacks create the most compelling comebacks. Let's talk about who Kyrie Irving really is when nobody's watching. This isn't the player who dominated headlines for all the wrong reasons in Brooklyn. This isn't the guy who couldn't find chemistry with LeBron in Cleveland's later years. This is a different version of Irving, one who spent the last 2 seasons in Dallas discovering something he'd lost along the way: peace with his role and his place. Since arriving in Dallas, Irving has posted 2 of the highest true shooting percentages of his entire career: 60.8% in 2024, 59.4% in 2025 before the injury. Those aren't just good numbers, they're elite efficiency marks that tell a deeper story. When Kyrie's mind is right, when he's locked in and bought into the system, he becomes one of the most unstoppable offensive forces the game has ever seen. But here's where the narrative gets more complex than most realize. Irving's journey back from this ACL tear isn't just about physical rehabilitation. It's about a player who's been searching for basketball identity his entire career, finally having the chance to cement his legacy on his own terms. Dr. Riley Williams performed the procedure at the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York, March 26, just over 3 weeks after the injury occurred. The surgery went smoothly, but ACL tears in the modern NBA carry weight beyond just the physical recovery. They test mental fortitude. They challenge a player's entire relationship with their body, their confidence, their ability to trust their movements. Irving's been through a lot in his career, but he's never faced anything quite like this. At 33 years old, coming back from a major knee injury, every decision matters. Every day in rehab matters. Every moment of doubt has to be conquered, not just once, but repeatedly. And here's what makes this comeback attempt so fascinating. Irving isn't returning to the same team that lost him. The Mavericks he'll rejoin in January have a completely different identity, a completely different set of expectations, and a completely different championship window. While Irving was rehabbing, Dallas didn't just stand still. They rebuilt their entire foundation around Anthony Davis, bringing in Klay Thompson's championship pedigree and surrounding them with a supporting cast that looks nothing like the team that made the finals run in 2024. This isn't about fitting Kyrie back into his old role. It's about discovering what role he can play in this new ecosystem. Think about what this lineup could look like when healthy. Irving's playmaking and isolation scoring next to Thompson's off-ball excellence and championship experience. Davis anchoring everything defensively while providing another elite scoring option. Derek Lively giving them rim protection and lob threats. This isn't just talent on paper, it's complementary talent that could fit together in ways we've never seen before. But there's another layer to the story that most people aren't considering. Irving's injury might have been the best thing that could have happened to his long-term relationship with this franchise. Stay with me here. When the Mavericks traded for Anthony Davis, there were legitimate questions about how 2 ball-dominant superstars would coexist. How do you maximize Irving's need for rhythm and touches, while also feeding Davis in the post? How do you manage egos and shot attempts when both players are used to being focal points? Irving's injury forced Dallas to figure out their identity around Davis first. By the time Kyrie returns, the hierarchy will be established, the offensive sets will be refined. Davis will have had months to establish himself as the franchise centerpiece, which ironically might create the perfect environment for Kyrie to thrive in a complementary role. Here's what nobody talks about when it comes to Kyrie's career trajectory. His most successful seasons have come when he had a clear understanding of his role within a larger framework. In Cleveland with LeBron, he knew he was the secondary creator and clutch scorer. Those Cleveland championship runs showcased Irving at his absolute peak, deadly in isolation, unstoppable in big moments, but not burdened with carrying an entire franchise on his shoulders every single night. This Dallas situation could provide something similar, but with one crucial difference. Kyrie isn't 24 years old anymore. He's not trying to prove he can be the best player on a championship team. He's trying to prove he can be the perfect complement to one. Reports suggest Kyrie could return as early as January, which would be roughly 10 months after the injury occurred. That timeline is aggressive for an ACL recovery, especially for a player in his 30s. But it's not unrealistic given modern rehabilitation techniques and Irving's documented work ethic when he's motivated.
But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. The Mavericks aren't rushing anything. They've been burned before by bringing players back too early from major injuries, and Irving's long-term health is more valuable than any short-term playoff push. This measured approach tells us something important about how Dallas views this situation. They're thinking bigger picture. If Irving returns in January and looks like the player he was before the injury, the Mavericks suddenly become one of the most intriguing teams in the Western Conference, not just because of their talent, but because of their potential chemistry and complementary skill sets. The physical rehabilitation is just one part of Irving's comeback story. The mental side might be even more crucial. ACL injuries mess with a player's confidence in ways that don't always show up in box scores. The hesitation on cuts, the second-guessing on drives to the rim, the subconscious protection of the repaired knee that can throw off shooting mechanics and defensive positioning. Irving's always been a player who lives in his head, sometimes to his benefit, sometimes to his detriment. How he handles this mental challenge could determine not just his individual success, but the ceiling of this entire Dallas experiment. Here's what gives me confidence in his ability to overcome it. Irving spent the last 2 years in Dallas rediscovering his love for the game. He's been more engaged, more professional, more locked in than he's been since his early Cleveland days. That mental foundation could be the difference between a successful comeback and a cautionary tale. Let's be real about what Dallas is trying to accomplish. Anthony Davis is 31, Klay Thompson is 34, Irving is 33. This isn't a young core building towards something. This is a veteran group with a narrow championship window that requires near-perfect health and chemistry to maximize. Irving's return doesn't just add another scorer to the rotation, it adds the one player who can create his own shot when nothing else is working. It adds clutch gene DNA that you can't teach or scheme for. It adds the kind of individual brilliance that can swing playoff series when the margin for error disappears. But it also adds questions. How will his body respond to the grind of an NBA season after major knee surgery? Can he stay healthy for a full playoff run? Can the chemistry that Dallas builds while he's out translate seamlessly when he returns? Here's what makes Irving's comeback so crucial for Dallas. It's not just about what he brings, but how his presence changes everyone else's role. Anthony Davis becomes even more dominant when he's not the only elite offensive option teams have to game plan for. Klay Thompson's catch-and-shoot opportunities multiply when Irving's penetration collapses defenses. Derek Lively's lob opportunities increase when Irving's driving threat commands attention in the paint. This is the kind of cascading impact that separates good teams from championship contenders. Individual talent is just the starting point. How that talent fits together, how it makes everyone around it better. That's what determines ceiling in June. Since his injuries, something interesting has happened with Irving's public persona. He's been more visible in team activities, more engaged with younger players, more willing to be a vocal leader even while he can't contribute on the court. This version of Kyrie Irving, the mentor, the veteran presence, the guy who's been through everything and come out the other side, might be exactly what this Dallas team needs. Championship teams need players who can perform in big moments, but they also need leaders who can guide them through adversity. Irving's comeback story gives him credibility in both areas. He's proven he can hit the biggest shots in basketball history, but he's also proven he can overcome personal and professional challenges that would derail lesser players. When Irving returns, and all signs point to it happening, Dallas will have something most teams can only dream about. 3 players who've been elite in different ways throughout their careers, all motivated by the knowledge that this might be their last real shot at a championship. Anthony Davis bringing his two-way dominance and defensive anchor ability, Klay Thompson bringing his championship pedigree and clutch shooting gene, Irving bringing his shot creation, playmaking, and proven ability to rise to the moment when everything's on the line. But here's the part that makes this so compelling. None of them are trying to prove they're the best player in basketball anymore. They're trying to prove they can be the best team in basketball. That shift in mindset, that collective ego check, could be the secret sauce that makes this whole thing work. The real question isn't whether Irving can come back from his ACL injury. Modern sports medicine and his documented work ethic make that almost inevitable. The real question is whether he can come back as the perfect version of himself for what this Dallas team needs. They don't need him to be the Kyrie who tried to carry entire franchises. They need him to be the Kyrie who can take over fourth quarters, create shots when the offense stagnates, and provide the kind of individual brilliance that championship teams rely on when their backs are against the wall. If that version of Irving emerges from this rehabilitation process, the Western Conference better take notice,
because Dallas won't just be adding a player. They'll be completing a puzzle that could reshape the entire championship conversation. Kyrie Irving's comeback represents more than just one player's return from injury. It's the culmination of a career-long journey toward finding the right fit, the right role, and the right moment to cement a complicated legacy. The injury was devastating. The rehabilitation has been grueling. The questions about his age, his knee, his ability to mesh with this new-look roster are all legitimate. But if Irving can return healthy and locked in, if he can embrace being the perfect third option rather than demanding to be the first, if he can channel all his individual brilliance into collective success, then Dallas might just have stumbled into something special. The Western Conference is wide open. The championship window is narrow. And in January, the most enigmatic player of his generation gets one more chance to prove that when it matters most, when the lights are brightest, when everything's on the line, there's nobody quite like Kyrie Irving.